Anyone that thought they would be cute with lasers or fireworks wouldn't last more than a few seconds, that's for sure. Also, thankfully, it was wet enough, we didn't have to worry about getting burned out. It would likely be a hasty attack anyway, and they wouldn't have time to mess with fire to attack us with. This was only a redoubt after all. It wasn't a place we could hold like a stronghold. We weren't trying to harden this camp location, only lightly fortify it so we could stage a hit and run ambush. These positions weren't designed and planned to hold a sustained assault forever, only to draw in the enemy and cause as heavy losses as possible, and stage a tactical retreat as soon as it was possible. Right around then, some children brought some food to us. I guess over at the command tent they had made some food. That was pretty cool, so I put my tools away and began eating. Everyone stopped to eat as food was delivered. We ate as fast as we could, because we didn't know how much time we would have. As a matter of personal preference, I didn't normally eat food prepared to me by others, but for my friends I always made the exception. I went over to the tent to see what was going on. I walked into the tent, listening more than wanting to interject myself, letting the group organically include me. I turned and looked over the field and at each of the defensive positions. I imagined scouts walking through ahead of the convoy looking for the food. Our guys would be in positions unseen, the scouts not searching through every single field if they didn't think we were near. They would notice the vehicle stopped here, of course, and they would fan out. Hopefully by then the main caravan would arrive and there would be a decent ambush. Our team wasn't trying to wipe out the entire convoy, mind you. They were just trying to take out a few vehicles at a time, demoralize the marauders, slow them down, slowly work through their numbers, attenuation. Eventually a manageable size for either us or whoever they would have to deal with next. Even though the vehicles would have stopped here temporarily, they wouldn't be here when the enemy group comes through. They'd see the vehicle stopped and see no can of food or indicator that we'd been leading behind and move onward, trying to see where we have actually stopped and trying to fortify and hold. Maybe they think we're leading them to our base where there'd be even more food, women, and children. What they didn't know is we didn't have trucks of food. We were carrying truckloads of AKs, parts, and supplies. I saw someone go to the truck that had the AKs in it and gave one to someone. I guess they didn't have one. They were shown how to use it briefly, then sent on their way with a couple of mags. I heard some of the conversation from the tent that we were moving out soon, sort of, and that perked me to come into the tent. I had my AR always on me now, so I didn't need an AK. But they were a good option, so even though they took different mags and ammo, I was glad we had them. They talked about how intel shows that the bait had indeed been taken. There are roughly 300 people heading towards us following the cans. It includes motorcycles, cars, trucks, and several buses. There was mention that they think we have tons of food and are leading them to where the rest of our food stores must be. Right around then, the children brought all of the food containers back and put them in the RV. That was good, I thought. There wouldn't be any evidence of how many people we had here. With that, it was time to leave. Our CO asked if I wanted to ride with him, and I did, of course, so that's where I went. I took my pack off and hopped in the van after helping to collapse the tent we had been using as our operations command area. Chapter 12. Heading out. Afternoon. Day 1. With my pack between my legs and my AR unslung and in my lap, we all drove off, heading north more. I took my Kevlar gloves off after we got going and put them in my bag. I counted and we had left around 12 to 15 guys behind us. I wasn't sure the exact amount. We weren't leaving them to die, of course. I imagine they had an evacuation plan in place that they hadn't told anyone about. We had several vehicles in front of us, and the RV behind us in our convoy. The two vehicles in the front kept several hundred yards ahead of us, and about 100 yards between each other. That was when I could see them. They were using a technique so they would scout the ambushes before we did, and so only one of them could get ambushed at a time. That was unless the ambush was extremely complicated. If the front was ambushed, the following vehicle could dismount and envelop the threat. Or if they wanted to, they could provide cover so the lead vehicle could retreat if it wasn't disabled. Counter-ambushing was very complicated but rewarding. I could tell these guys trained on convoy security a lot. I guess we weren't at a high enough threat level since the threat was behind us to actually try to physically cover each other. I assumed that if we had to go back through enemy territory, we would be getting out every 100 yards or so and having them go in front while we cover them and rinse repeat. Thinking about convoy tactics, we drove a few miles through another couple of bends in the road as it got more wooded. One of the vehicles that was behind us stopped and got out. They started attaching things to the trees. I imagined them putting explosives on the trees with some kind of detonation system so the trees could be blown down to cover the road as appropriate. They hopped back into the truck and returned following us. We weren't going super fast, so they were able to catch up easily. It was just me and the CO in the van now. He told me to grab the food cans and keep tossing the food out after every intersection. I got the food boxes out and set them between us. A beef stew, a ravioli, a can of pork ham product, and some... After some twists and turns, going slow for the RV, we heard a single loud shot, followed by peppers of gunfire in the background. I imagine the scouts following the canned food and passing harmlessly by the sentries. They noticed that we had stopped there a while but didn't see us. Instead of scouting around, since we had never waited for them yet, the scouts kept going. The main convoy came up from behind, and the sharpshooter with the largest rifle probably kicked off the ambush. He would have aimed for someone who looked like they were in charge, or a truck with radios, or maybe he saw another designated marksman, or just took out the most important and mission-critical vehicle. Whatever he saw that looked important, he took the shot, and it all happened pretty much at once. I heard about a minute of solid gunfire. That would be the first group. Then I heard a second set of gunfire. Either people were trying to flank them and ran into another bunker, or it was part of a staged retreat. I think it was part of the staged retreat because only moments later I heard the third stage of gunfire. I only heard a tiny bit of return fire at all. It was likely that the other side was caught completely off guard and unprepared. I heard some heavier shots through this as well. I imagined our designated sharpshooter was taking out their designated sharpshooters, or maybe they had a comms-looking vehicle. It was also possible they spotted someone with a squad automatic weapon and decided that was the highest priority. Either way, our guys weren't going to stick around, so the other side could use its sheer numbers to envelop the small ambush team. I imagined them melting into the forest, and not another shot was heard. We continued driving at our slow pace, but a few minutes later I heard some huge explosions. Something had detonated the trees, and they were likely falling across the road. It would take that much longer to reach us, and there would be a fear of sniper fire the entire time they tried to clear that road. Either that, or they would have to try to figure out how to drive around it, which also took time. It was a little bit of a wooded area at that spot, and would be a challenge. Give us longer to get away. I saw in front one of the trucks take a turn down another road, a logging road. I guess he was going to go pick up our ambush troops. We drove past it and I threw a can. We had started to go up the hill a little bit now from time to time though, and I wasn't sure if the can method would work. I had hoped that my can wasn't somehow rolling away, going down another road. I guess that would be a stretch though. Chapter 13, Crossroads, afternoon, day 1. We drove for a while, and I lost track of time. I was still remembering to throw cans out periodically, but I was lost in thought. I don't know how long it had been, but we all started pulling off the road again. Everyone else jumped out, so I jumped out too and put my pack on. There was a quick huddle, so I went to go see what the news was. The good news was our ambush team all got out okay. That made everyone very happy. The bad news was that we were still being followed. It wasn't nearly as many vehicles now, but there were still a lot. The ambush team, unburdened by the RV's speed constraint, was able to make it to safety quickly after the pickup. The trees across the road purchased them extra time. They were likely headed towards one of our strongholds now to help reinforce it.